All right, welcome back to All Cars React, y'all. I am John. It is time for a new Motorweek retro review. This is the 2004 Cadillac SRX, brought to us by Hondata97 for uploading this. Thank you so much. And this one was recommended to me by one of my viewers because I did a whole series of Cadillac ones back in 2024, and I basically said, hey, I'm finishing up the Cadillac trilogy, and they pointed out, no, I'm not, because I hadn't done the SRX, and he wanted this first generation, not the crappy later one. So I went out and found one and decided this is a great idea. So let's get into it, see what, as Cadillac was revitalizing themselves back in the beginning of the 2000s, they came out with this, which could have been and should have been a home run. Let's see what Motorweek said about it when it's brand new. So as always, make yourself comfortable, grab yourself a beverage of choice. Sadly, we do have some bubbly today, and it's actually quite good, amazingly flavorful. It tastes a little funny, but I really like them. And just you and me chatting here today. Let's see what they said about it back in 2004.
Your host for Motorweek, John Davis.
Well, hello and welcome again to Motorweek. We're glad to have you with us. Cadillac has embarked on reinventing itself as a world-class luxury car brand. So far, both their CTS luxury touring sedan and XLR Roadster have met with strong praise and buyer response. Now, the next member of the new Cadillac, the SRX Luxury Utility. Unlike Caddy's popular but massive truck-based Escalade series, the SRX combines space and all-wheel traction with the soul of a sports sedan. Sounds world-class, but the proof is in the driving.
All right, before they move on here, let's take a look at the styling real quick. And, you know, I'm going to probably do a video. Let me know if you like this idea or not. But there was a 90-day period back in, I guess it was 99, something like that, where General Motors, the CEO and the directors knew they needed to change. They knew they were falling behind, right? They were so far behind BMW and Mercedes and Audi, and there was a point where Lincoln was outselling them, and they knew they needed to change their image. And a presentation was made, and it was the new art and science design styling, what we see right here, what became the Evoque, I believe it was the Evoque concept Roadster, the original CTS, and the XLR. And the directors were like, you've got 90 days to make this into a full-size model for us to see, because it was a $4 billion bet for GM. It was a new factory, a brand new platform, and they were aiming to be world-class. And ultimately, the project went forward because we had the CTS and the XLR and this. And so this is a result of GM swinging literally for the fences and making a big, big move upmarket to truly challenge the Germans. And, you know, for a lot of people who are like, oh, we're, you know, tired of chasing the Germans, and I've certainly said it, you know, they've ruined Cadillac by chasing the Europeans around racetracks, right? They've lost the essence of what was Cadillac, but they've made a new Cadillac. And at the time, they were selling less than 200,000 cars in America, when, like, Mercedes, I think they were selling something like 600,000 or 700,000 around the world. Cadillac was increasingly becoming a bit player, and it also hurt the image of General Motors overall, with Cadillac as the crown jewel, as it were. If you couldn't build it, then did the rest of the stuff even really matter? There's a lot of complexity behind there. I'd like to do that story, I think, one day. But back to the styling here, I like this. I really do. I've never been a fan of the Escalade, and I've been critical here on the channel about the CTS, and that art and science, Cadillac needed to do something, and they needed to not mimic the Germans. But this always looks unfinished to me. And I do think that the SRX is the best example of that design language being carried forward. I think that the cars have the weight to carry off the angular styling the best. I liked it more when it was new. I was a big fan of this car when it came out. I was super into it. And I've cooled over the years, but I still think it's handsome. I really do. I think it carries that design language the best.
World class, but the proof is in the driving. Rumor has it that Cadillac proposed a car-based all-wheel drive luxury utility years before Lexus launched its successful RX 300. But even though they are now one of the last luxury brands to enter the posh and civilized ute segment with the 2004 Cadillac SRX, at least it is based on the CTS, the best performance sedan in the brand's history. But while the SRX and its shared Sigma chassis went through the same European development as the CTS, the demands of an all-wheel drive wagon were so different that numerous components were developed specifically for the SRX. That goes for the sheet metal too. Little except for the shape of the V grille and headlights are shared with the CTS. Taller fenders on 17 and 18-inch wheels were in order so a new suspension could cope with the needs of an all-wheel drive utility. With a long 116.4-inch wheelbase, the SRX is a unique example of Caddy's sheer art and science styling, one that won't be confused with European and Japanese competitors. Around back, the SRX features an equally distinct and chiseled vertical tail with a large hatch and separate opening glass that dips slightly on center for better rear visibility. Advanced engineering is evident in every aspect of the SRX. Front suspension, upper and lower control arms are light aluminum alloy. The multi-link rear suspension is mounted on a fully isolated subframe to control impact and noise. With 8 inches of wheel travel up front and nearly 10 inches in the rear, ride is impressive over any road surface. And that's before you opt for magnetic ride control. A low center of gravity also means the SRX has impressive cornering stability. For added insurance, the chassis includes 4-channel StabiliTrak electronic stability control. The SRX is available in rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive models with a nominal 50-50 front-to-rear torque split. It's a great foul weather system and even suitable for mild off-road duties.
You know, and before they move on, because they're about to go to the engine, there's a couple of angles there that I do think this car looks a little awkward. From straight on, it looks thick and narrow at the same time to my eyes. Like below the grille and where the headlights are, there's a huge piece right there. And they've put in these overly large rectangular fog lights, running lights. It looks a little awkward because the hood comes down like this. But down the side and around the back, I still think this car looks good. I'm not a huge fan of the early 2000s stylings, not just from Cadillac, from, well, most manufacturers, as a matter of fact. But I still think this car looks good. I really do. Wouldn't be ashamed to drive one today. And I kind of like how they went through it, you know, talking about what they did in the front suspension and the isolation from the subframe, and it all pays off in a good ride, a good handling. You had rear-wheel drive, you had all-wheel drive, you had a planted feel, and while it is based on the CTS, that's not quite true. As I recall, they developed the CTS and then lengthened the platform, the Sigma platform, if I remember, and turned that into the STS. And that's the platform they use to develop this because it shares the same wheelbase with the STS. Yeah, I this one's giving me warm fuzzies right here, guys.
Our test SRX is powered by a beefy 4.6-liter Northstar V8, also shared with Cadillac's XLR Roadster. Mounted front to rear, it generates 320 horsepower and 315 pound-feet of torque. The SRX is also available with a new 260 horsepower 3.6-liter V6 engine that is also being added to the CTS. Both variable...
Okay, before they go on, let's talk about the engines. Very likely, if I was back then and I had the money for it, because I wasn't far out of college here, I would have gotten the 6. But I respect the 6. I have talked endlessly about the North Star on the channel. I'm going to talk about it one more time because every time I talk about the North Star, and I drove them when they were brand spanking new in the STS, and how sweet it was. It was a thoroughly modern, sweet-sounding, powerful, torquey engine. I loved it. It made a big impression on me how much I liked that Cadillac. And to this day, I still like Cadillacs because of that experience. Driving one of these and the STS. As I got older, I realized the North Stars had problems. But I also, every time I say that, somebody in the comments points out that they fixed the problems by about this time, right? And so I have to do my little mea culpa right there that probably knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have a huge hesitation about the North Star. So you get all the benefit of what I think is a very sweet engine with the reliability that came later in its life. End rant.
Valve timing engines are mated to a 5-speed automatic transmission. Regular and sport shift programs, as well as a manual shift mode, are included.
Okay, so first off, the positive, after literally probably 15 or more years of watching GM, in my opinion, I have no statistics to back this up, always being behind the curve in transmissions. They've always made some very smooth shifting transmissions. I've always believed that GM has done some of the best transmissions in the industry in terms of smoothness. But they always seem to be behind everybody else. So, you know, a Toyota or Honda come out with 4 speeds, GM still putting in 3 speeds. They finally start playing in 4 speed, and somebody else comes out with 5 speed. So to come out with a 5 speed, right on it. This was a thoroughly modern, very good car.
And it all comes down to some pretty decent track numbers for any utility. Our V8 dispatched 0 to 60 in 7.2 seconds and skated through the quarter mile in 15.4 seconds at 93 miles per hour. That's in the same ballpark as the BMW X5 4.4i. Plus, acceleration is inexplicably smooth given this wagon's size and 4,320-pound weight with seamless shifts to the red line. True to its sports sedan lineage, turn-in is quick as the SRX reacts confidently to driver input. However, the electronic variable assist steering does fall short on feel. And though stable thanks to near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution, the SRX is softer sprung than the CTS, and that allows plenty of body roll in corners and nosedive when stopping. On that, braking is by way of 4-wheel vented disc with ABS and electronic brake proportioning. The front twin-piston calipers help produce secure stops of 128 feet from 60 miles per hour. But like steering, pedal feel is a bit disconnected from the road. The SRX...
Okay, before they go on to the interior, I have basically no complaints there. I mean, we could talk about it that, you know, there's a lot of body roll, but it's a sport utility. And while it has some performance, it's not a sport utility, if you know what I mean. The slalom there really emphasizes to me, and I'm glad they start talking about the BMW X5 here, the awkwardness. Down the side, you see the hood rise up, and it looks like a wedge from some views. And in spite of all the positive here, if you're a younger person, upwardly mobile, and you're looking at the BMW, ooh, it would be hard to pry somebody into this. And I have a gut feeling, I haven't gone and verified this yet, that in terms of dimensions, length, width, weight, this is probably a half size bigger than what the Germans were doing. Cadillac had trouble making their cars the size of what the Germans did to go head-to-head against them. They always felt they needed to be just a little bit bigger. I think that Lincoln had the same problem as well. So I'd be willing to bet this is bigger than the German competitors. But performance, there's nothing to complain about here. That braking distance for an SUV, that's not bad. This is a thoroughly competent and modern SUV. I'm impressed. I expected them to come up with some kind of fatal flaw, and they really didn't.
His wide open and luxurious cabin has a great feel and is completely redecorated from the CTS, with more wood, bright work, and leather adding considerable warmth. Step-in height is nice and low. The V8's front bucket seats offer 8-way power adjustments and heat, but oddly no lumbar adjustment. Gauges are stylized and look appropriate to the upscale sporting nature of the SRX. The dash features a clean, PC-like center stack, complete with climate controls, AM/FM CD audio, and available DVD navigation. Side and curtain airbags safeguard all outboard occupants. But easily one of the most impressive aspects of the SRX is the rear cabin. It is among the most generous in its class. The 60/40 split second row bench offers 41 inches of legroom, deep footwells, and plenty of room for 3 across. An available power folding third row bench takes SRX capacity from a nominal 5 to a hearty 7. Posh add-ons include huge ultra-view sunroofs, the largest available, plus rear DVD entertainment. With the second row occupied, cargo space is a fine 32.4 cubic feet. When folded flat, it increases to a true SUV 70 cubic feet. Prices for
All right. Interior, what to say? Minivan. This is essentially a small minivan with 2 rear doors. I'm not a huge fan of SUVs with third rows. I mean, sure, if you've got a Suburban, that makes sense. And I mean, we've got it in our Explorer, but we never use it. We leave them folded down because we don't need them. They're just weight that you haul around. So sure, if you've got a family and you need the third row of seats, or you've got to pick up your nieces and nephews and you need it, it is really, really handy. But at that point, drive the minivan. I will die on that hill. I like 2-row SUVs. The third rows, Anyway, to me, it's just weight you're paying for. Interior-wise, the leather looks comfortable. Everything looks just fine here. And the dash, I actually like the styling of it. And I like that they said they added some fake wood or some wood to warm it up a little bit, because the CTS was always very cold. It never looked premium, in spite of how much GM may have been spending on the materials. It never looked luxury. And this one doesn't either. In fact, the gauges, while they say it was appropriate, they looked a little busy to me. Too many hash marks in there. And the center stack right there, kind of a barrel shape and turned a little towards the driver. I mean, it all looks good. It all works good. I generally like it. But do you look at this and say, yeah, that's an Audi competitor right there? Not quite. I don't quite feel it. It's not something I can point to and something I can say, that's a problem, do this one thing. It's an ambiance that comes across like really nice car, but is it that premium?
Rear-wheel drive SRX V6 start at $38,690. All-wheel drive kicks it up to $43,685. The SRX V8 begins at $46,995 for rear drive and $48,895 with all-wheel drive. Overall, at the upper end of its competitors. So we greet the new up-and-coming SRX and welcome it on the road. And though the sticker may pack some punch, this caddy's world-class act has what it takes to shine in today's ultra-competitive luxury utility market. The 2004 Cadillac SRX is great to drive, and it's about time.
All right, so part of the story behind this is that back in the 90s, people at Cadillac were screaming, we need to make an SUV. And I don't remember who it was exactly. I'd have to look this up. They were absolutely refused. And that allowed Lincoln to come out with the Navigator, and it allowed Lexus to come out with, I guess, the RX, and Cadillac fell behind. So that's why they said at the beginning of this that this was among the last to come out. And in many ways, Cadillac got it right. I mentioned I'm a big fan of this car. And you know what? I still am. If I take all of my thoughts and if I had one, I think I'd be perfectly satisfied with it. If I take myself back then and I'm looking at the top end, a $50,000 Cadillac SUV, and they said it's at the high end of the competitors, why would I get the Cadillac? There's, and then I start to dig into some of the details. There's a few angles on this that I just don't think it's handsome. There's many angles I do. Many views of this, I'm like, that is just a good-looking vehicle to me, and I like the color it's in too. But some of the angles, it looks a little weird. It's like a prototype SUV using art and science. It's not bad. It just looks slightly unrefined to me, and it doesn't ever quite look premium. Now, being biased towards Cadillac, being biased towards American cars, do I think it's better than the Mercedes, the BMW, or maybe even, I don't know, an Audi, whatever? No. Would I be tempted at the right price to be able to support Cadillac and support America and buy one of these and own one of these? The answer is yes. Now, coincidentally, in spite of that, and having driven one of these when they were brand spanking new and being super impressed with them, I really, really, really liked them. I do not want to underplay. I would like one in my driveway. One of my wife's friends had one, and I believe I am quoting her when she said it's the biggest piece of junk she ever owned. She could not wait to get out of it. I don't remember how long she had it, but she had just an endless stream of problems with it. Whether it was, I think, the starter going out, or whether it was just pieces of the interior wearing out. It was the same general criticisms you hear about American cars, just not using as good a quality materials as literally almost any of the imports. So unfortunately, my opinion of this car, in spite of how much I generally like the shape and the technology and the engines and everything else and what they were trying to do, its position in history, I also have that firsthand experience talking to someone who owned one. And I remember being like, I dig your car. And they're like, I hate it. I cannot wait to get rid of it. And it was just them trying to figure out the money to make it work. And I'm going to end with that. A car that I won't say I lusted after it, but I just generally feel that for all the money and all the big swings and all the we've got to take on the best of the world, they produced something that ultimately didn't. Let me know your thoughts below, guys. And again, I'll go back. If you're interested in that story of this 90 days where the designer needed to come up with a 3D prototype so that the CEO and the directors could say, yes, we're willing to invest $4 billion to revitalize Cadillac, let me know, and that might make it onto my list of projects for the year. Thanks so much for being here.